Welcome to Write Now Workshop Podcast, where you can write a book and change the world. I'm your host, Kitty Bucholtz, and this is episode 140, Finding Time to Write, an interview with John Bucholtz, coming to you on Thursday, May 2nd, 2019. Did I just say Bucholtz? Yes, that is indeed the same last name as me. Oh, wait. Is my husband's name John? Why, yes, it is. So I just finished interviewing my husband, John, and talking to him about where he's been finding time to write. Ever since he started trying to write, full-length books, getting to the end, sending it out to agents and editors and going to writers' conferences and everything, except for a few periods of unemployment in between films, he has been fully and completely employed the whole time. So I wanted to find out what he thought was working and all the different kinds of things that he's tried in order to keep on going. Because in the last 10 years, he's managed to complete one ginormous book, two more regular-sized middle-grade books, and several novellas for his middle-grade superhero series. So I thought you might find it interesting if maybe he had some ideas on something that you haven't tried, or just to remind you of ideas of things that maybe you haven't tried for a while. So I do hope that you will find this to be a fun, entertaining, and helpful discussion of all the different ways and times and places that we can find time to write. And depending on which hemisphere you're in, you might be thinking about writing outside now that it's getting summery in the northern hemisphere. Or maybe it's finally not crazy hot in some of the areas of the southern hemisphere. And you're like, oh, it's fall. I want to go outside. So you could take your laptop. There's so many things that you could do. And I hope that you will find a couple of new ideas and or just be re-inspired to try the things that you know have already been working for you. So whatever you're doing, I hope that there is some writing involved and that you're having fun and that the rest of your life is still fun enough to give you more creative ideas and creative juice so that you want to write even more. Have a great week, and here's the interview. Today's guest is John Bucholtz. John has been telling stories his whole life, whether via role-playing games for his friends or while working on movies that entertain millions. He has expressed his creativity through drawing, photography, graphic design, and more, but after a nudge from his wife, he recently discovered a passion for writing stories for kids. Born and raised in Michigan, John ended up in the field of animation, where he worked on several video games, as well as the movies Happy Feet 2, Avatar, and War for the Planet of the Apes. He has worked in California, Australia, New Zealand, and now Sweden, where he's writing as he works on a video game. Welcome, John.
Hi, Katie. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for taking the time. And, the great distance that's separating us. What do you think? Maybe 10 meters?
Maybe 15.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I mean, it's a good sized apartment, but not ginormous.
But we do have two offices, so she's in one, I'm in the other, so it's not too bad.
Yes, that's right. So he can have his video game statuettes behind him, and I have my gazillion books actually still in boxes. You can see if you're watching on YouTube. Right there is just the smallest pile.
But we'll get bigger.
We are. However, here's the problem with our boxes. We're still trying to make sure that we have plenty of time for writing, and the boxes are not quite being unpacked as quickly as we said we would do it.
Yeah, one a day we aren't quite hitting our goal of one box a day, but hopefully we'll get there soon.
Yeah. I was happy that we did 3 in a day last week, but then that was the only day we did it. But here we are talking about finding time to write because with all of the many moves that we have both done. By the way, so just in case anybody's wondering, is she talking to her husband? Am I the wife that you were talking about when you said a little nudge?
Yes, actually, Kitty is my wife. We've been married for almost 29 years.
Next week.
Oh.
Yes. How old did you say we were when we got married?
13, I think. Yeah. Was it 13? I think it was 13.
I think so. I think at some point you've just been lowering the age of our marriage year so that we don't appear,
Yeah, we had a playground romance. It was quite romantic. Yeah.
It was. I pushed you off the swing and then kissed your knee when you fell.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so as we make up these stories, we have to find a time.
Speaking of writers, yes, you were very good
Speaking
at
of.
it.
So tell us a little bit about your background. Let's go back to when was the first time you can remember writing something?
Oh gosh, I was actually in grade school of all things. I really wasn't considered a writer. It was one of these things that they had us do and said, "Hey, the class I was in, why don't we write a story?" And I actually drew all my own illustrations as well. It was about a little boy, a kid detective that the police came to whenever they had problems. And he was investigating a haunted house that the police were flummoxed and didn't know what to do. So they called this kid up, and he went and found out it was a couple of burglars that were actually robbing the neighborhood and that they were posing as ghosts and scaring people away. It was very, very, very interesting.
It does sound interesting.
But sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and do I remember that you won an award for this story?
Sort of an award, yeah. It was actually me and one other student. We both won, and one of the rewards, one of the things was we actually got to read our books to a different, like a lower grade. Like I think mine was a first grade class. Of course, most of them were interested in sticking stuff up their nose while I was reading, but
it's a good memory.
Yeah, great memories. But as a sort of another reward, we actually got to go to the local college, which was Central Michigan University, where I lived in Mount Pleasant, and actually attended a class with other writers that had won awards or that had chosen to go or something. And I actually saw my cousin Joan there.
Really?
Yes, she was attending. I think she had either written something or she had elected to go to this class, and we just sort of ran into each other. And she's like, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I sort of won this award thing, this book that had been bound and with all the illustrations and stuff." So it was pretty cool. It was my first real taste as a writer. That was kind of neat.
Nice. Okay, so then how did it influence what was the next stage of writing or storytelling?
Well, it's not really writing. Some people would kind of shake their heads if I said it was writing, but I actually about junior high, when I was about 12 years old, I think, is I got into Dungeons and Dragons of all things, and one of my friends just sort of started running games, and then eventually I started taking over and running games for my brother and then our friends, and that sort of just led to this years and years of storytelling, coming up with these different worlds and these different scenarios that our friends would go through. And so it sort of became this storytelling, because it's one thing just to throw monsters at somebody and say, "Here's an orc, kill orc." But it's another reason to have, why is the orc there? What's his motivations? Why is he attacking the party? It sounds weird, but it actually makes for a more fun game if this orc just isn't sitting in some dungeon room, picking his teeth with his sword. He's there
waiting to attack someone.
Yeah. Oh, wait, here's our adventure of the day. I'm going to go attack him. It takes a little more than that. And if you come up with a reason why he's there, like he's scouting for his master or his captain or whatever, at least that's a different reason. It's something different and not just sitting in some room somewhere.
Yeah. Well, I have to say that I have played a little bit of Dungeons and Dragons, and the only times that I've had a good time was when you were the one running the game. So I do like your funny way of telling stories in D&D.
Well, it's like I said, it actually took years. It just didn't happen overnight. Obviously, when I was in grade school and in high school, it was more just the monsters being thrown at you. But in college and also in Arizona, when we were in Arizona and I was running it for friends, I discovered that they quickly got bored if I didn't have a good story behind everything, especially when I had certain people playing in my games and they questioned why we should go to the city. Gosh, who did that sound like?
I don't know.
In
I don't know who that sounds like.
And it was unbelievable. My wife was playing with and I'm like, "There's the city over there." And the others are like, "Hey, let's go there." And she's like, "Why?"
No, that's not
Yeah,
how it works.
that's
You
how
said
I
there's a
remember.
city over there. And look, there's like this weird rock with a door in it. And I was like, but our masters told us to go to the city and everybody else wanted to go explore what was behind the door. And I said, why are we doing that? We're supposed to go to the city.
So yes, I quickly realized that people needed reasons, especially certain spouses needed reasons when I was running these games, that they needed motivation to do something like that, and that actually helped, develop my storytelling skills, because it's
Aw,
something else that I
I
realized I had
helped
in a offbeat sort of way. Yes.
in an annoying sort of way.
You guys hear me say annoying? I didn't say no.
Okay, so then you spent years and years and years. By the way, I just wanted to say when you said that you were probably 12 or 13. So what did you think of the first episode of season 1 of Stranger Things?
Oh, well, that was really neat. I have to admit, I'm like, wow, I do remember that. And as well as E.T., if everybody saw E.T. Extraterrestrial, the Steven Spielberg movie, at the beginning of that, they're also playing Dungeons and Dragons. And
Really?
I'm
I
like,
don't even remember that.
oh yeah, they're all sitting around a table playing Dungeons and Dragons. I'm like, oh yes, oh that's awesome. That was something else that I saw that sort of like, oh, that's cool to me. Of course, back when I was doing it, it was the nerdy thing, because I'd spend most of the time that I played, it was during the junior high dances of all things, and a bunch of people were in the cafeteria dancing, and I was in the library playing with whoever was running a game. So it was definitely a nerdy thing to do when I first started. But now it's become cool, and especially with the latest version 5, it's actually really easy to teach people who've always wanted to learn it. It's a little more cool now.
Well, I think it's cool now because the kids back then are now adults, and we've decided to just tell people, listen, this is cool. You should do it.
Listen, son, it's not nerdy for you to play Dungeons and Dragons. It's actually, I highly recommend it. Yes.
All right. So you started writing, and then you started years and years and years of storytelling. And then there was the undercover storytelling as you were an adult, pretending that you didn't still play D&D because it was not cool for any other adult to know.
Yep.
Yep. And then when, actually, I think I might know the answer to this. When do you think was the next time you actually wrote a story after the 5th grade or whatever grade it was?
Well, maybe you do, maybe you don't know this story. I actually did some writing in college.
That's what I remember.
I took a
You
grade of
used
writing
my typewriter and used up all the ribbon, I remember.
But it was, it gave me another look into storytelling and what other people were writing. And let's just say I wasn't prepared for that writing course by any stretch of the imagination. I was writing these horrible stories and barely got a passing grade, and other people were writing these beautiful stories, and it was a little intimidating, I have to admit.
Now, would you say, is it fair to say, in reality, not just like me trying to make you look good, but would it be fair to say that part of it is because you had been spending so many years doing verbal storytelling that you hadn't been practicing and like putting words on a page in a certain order and choosing the right word?
Well, that's probably a good, yeah, I can definitely agree with you there. I've spent, the motivations of an orc has nothing to do with a story arc of a story or a character in a story that I was trying to write. So yeah, writing stuff on pieces of paper was definitely completely out of my norm when it came to any sort of storytelling whatsoever. So, yeah, it didn't. While role playing is great, it didn't prepare me enough for telling stories. Other stories.
Yeah. And again, I really think that the difference, because I've heard your verbal stories in D&D and I've read your written stories on paper. And I really think that the biggest difference is probably the fact that you don't have to choose which words you're going to say. You don't even have to finish a sentence properly in order to explain the orc's motivation. Whereas when you write the words down on paper, You know,
Yeah,
you
you
can't
have to write
skip
everything.
words. You have to stay in the same tense if it's present tense or past tense. I know tenses killed you for a while at
Oh
first.
yes, and also you don't have to open the thesaurus when you're writing D&D. It's orc open door. Instead of this, how do I say door without saying door? Portal? No, not portal. So yeah, there's a couple differences between the two.
Yeah. Okay, so I remember that in college, and then I know the next time I remember seeing you write or hearing about you writing. But when do you think it was?
Oh man, I have to admit it was the only time I remember after that was Avatar,
When
or
you
after
started your first
Avatar.
book? Yeah, that's what
Yes.
I remember too. Okay. So now we're getting caught up into the space where we're talking about you actually decided you wanted to write a book and you secretly did so at the kitchen table while other people were watching TV. Do I have this kind of right? Tell us about
Well,
it.
I sort of remember that. I remember we were taking a trip. It was after I finished on Avatar, and we were going to be moving away to Australia. And I believe it was around our anniversary in May. Um, and we went to Las Vegas just to sort of get away and relieve some stress after the long hours on working on this movie. And I sort of, on the drive there, we typically on our long drives, by the way, of course, we will come up with stuff to talk about so we can, a lot of miles to cover when we're driving. So we try to come up with stuff. And I don't think we run out of the LA city limits when I'm like, you know what, I've been thinking, I have this story in mind. I might want to write it down. And you kind of went, what?
Yeah.
So I turned to be like, wait, what are you talking about? So actually, Kitty was a great motivator and a reason why I got into writing because, she made it look so easy. I'm like, how hard can it be? But that was the first time. So I just had this story idea. I'm not even sure where it came from about this boy who becomes a superhero. And I just started writing it down. Of course, with many questions, many questions to my wife. And how would you do this? And how would you do this? And first person and third person, how does this sound? So she was very patient in helping me write my first book.
Now, the other thing that I remember, so I'm trying to make sure that we are giving helpful advice and also please don't do what I did advice to people who are listening. So I remember that the biggest shock after you're writing a book, like on paper, I think the second shock after that was when you were pretty close to done. Which I didn't know, how serious you were, if you would ever finish, if you were just playing around or whatever. So it had to have been months, maybe, because I kind of want to say it was after, no, I know for sure it was after we returned from Australia. You were sitting at Doug's kitchen table.
So it took a couple of years, actually.
Yeah.
I think it was a total of almost
3?
Maybe almost 2.5 to 3 years. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Okay. So then my second big shock after just hearing that you were going to write, et cetera, was I showed you how to find out what the word count was on your Word document. Do you remember what it was?
Oh, yes. It was 140,000 words.
And what is your genre/age that you're writing for?
60 to 70.
Middle grade.
Middle grade, 60 to, typically a middle grade book is 60 to 70,000.
No, that's the high end that I told you might be able to get away with if your story was really good.
40 years. So.
40 to 50, and you wrote 140,000 words.
I was a little wordy, just a little bit.
So here's the other thing. I, again, was like, okay, this is what happens when somebody plays D&D for 30 years and the game story doesn't really change a ton. You just keep going and going and going.
I was told to tell a story, and so I did.
And the story, just keep telling it. Keep telling it. Oh, wait. At some point, you have to stop telling it.
I had a beginning, a middle, and an end. It just
it was
out.
Long, yeah. And not that it wasn't good. It just wasn't the right word count for the age.
It wasn't quite the word count. But the good news is that looking back at it, there were parts you could easily go, oh yeah, I didn't need to say this. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't need to say this wasn't necessary.
Okay, so now we're getting into the beginning of being helpful, I think. so, so you wrote a 140,000 word book from beginning to end. You actually got to the end of the book, and
Yep.
it was, let's just call it 2 to 3 years. We're not sure exactly.
Not quite sure.
So that is a lot of writing. Some people, it takes them 4 or 5 or 10 years to write fewer words than that. So tell us, do you remember people, when you're listening, let me just say there's obviously a lot of things I know about John and John knows about me that you don't know about either of us. And one of the things is, do you remember John? No, nope, I don't remember. But John, do you remember like when or how you managed to find time? Because, you were working hard on a movie, doing full-time work and sometimes overtime. So how did you manage to get so much writing done?
Well, the good news is on Happy Feet 2, Rob Coleman was the director of animation on that project, and he was renowned for bringing projects in on time and under time, actually. And so he was very organized. So the good news is on that project, I didn't do a lot of overtime. So I did find lots of time outside of work to do it. Typically, I'm trying to remember, I think I might have been mornings.
Okay.
I've experimented quite a bit when it comes to times and what's best for me. And I'm sure a lot of other people who have written as well, for any length of time have sort of gone, yeah, no, this isn't a good time for me to write.
Yeah.
Whether it's at night or in the morning, some people, that's how their brain works. For me, I find it's best in the morning because I wake up, I'm wide awake or waking up, and sitting down at the computer, I just find it best to start my day writing that way. Typically, when I come home from work, I don't want to sit in front of the computer, which I have been since I'm an animator. I've been sitting in front of the computer all day, and I just don't want to stare at the screen, for five more seconds or another hour or 2 hours.
Yeah.
So it's for me during that time, it was best in the morning.
Okay. Now, so it's been, my goodness, how long has it been since we worked on Avatar? Almost 10 years since the beginning.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, we moved to Sydney for, no, wait, Avatar.
2009.
No, yeah, I was thinking Happy Feet 2. That was 2009.
Yeah.
So 2000, it doesn't matter. For the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years, it was some time ago. Yeah, that's right. Because, okay, this is the time when normally I would think if I were one of those really professional podcasters, I would say, okay, stop. We're going to just restart the entire paragraph. But I like people to know the real Kitty. So here I am saying, honestly, it doesn't matter when it was. But so you wrote this book. A lot of it was in the morning because you woke up earlier than what you needed to go to work.
Yeah.
Now and some other times in between, you have had a gym membership where you woke up and went straight to the gym. So how does that work when you're like, oh, well, mornings is the best time for me, but now 3 or 4 mornings a week, the first thing I do is go to the gym. So what we're talking about is finding time to write. So I'm just going to kind of let you go with it. Try to tell us about the times that you thought were working for you, or when that time got taken up by something else and now you had to figure out a new time.
Well, like you were saying, the best times for me were typically always the morning. I've written 2 other books beside this one. And I believe over in New Zealand and stuff, I was writing almost all in the morning, sometimes at night when I felt truly motivated to sit down and get in front of the computer. But most of the time it was in the morning when I would wake up and just go sit in front of my computer and just start writing. I have tried sometimes at nights with various degrees of success. Sometimes no,
Yeah.
yes. But most recently, especially in the last year, we've both gotten gym memberships in order to stay healthy. And actually my job recommends, and they actually pay for part of your gym membership because they want you to be healthy. They know that sitting in front of the computer is not good for the human body for long stretches of time. So they motivate you to go to the gym. But since I do a lot of my good work in the morning, that's when I typically wake up. I go to the gym before I go to work. So I've had to find times to write instead of the mornings. And actually, it's only been the last couple months that I've realized that writing at lunchtime for me has been a boon into my writing, which asked me a couple of years ago, I would have laughed. But now that you have an hour lunch, and I always take my lunch with me in order to save money. Sitting in a conference room with my lunch and writing away on my laptop, if I can get, a couple pages or 3 pages or 4 pages, I'm thrilled. And it's weird because I look forward to it while I'm working. I'm in that mindset, and then I actually look forward to lunch because great, I can now take that energy that I'm having at work and switch it quickly to my writing and put out a couple pages during my hour lunchtime. So it's turned out to be really good. I've actually well on my way to finishing up another novella associated with my first book, and we'll have minds of starting a next one, and most of it will be on my lunch break.
All right, so let's be really specific for people so that they can figure out, okay, in my life, in my schedule, in my work environment, what can I do? So like Samuel Parker, the author of Border Son, who was on a couple of, I think, months ago. Sometimes I get lost in how quickly or recently I talked to somebody. He was telling us that he goes down to his car and sits in the car and types and writes work. And I have typed in the NBC cafeteria and in the car. Once I get home, park in our parking spot and know that you aren't wondering where I am yet, I would sit with my laptop and write for another 20 or 30 minutes because I knew you were probably playing a video game and weren't at all wondering where I was.
No, so I would get I always wondered, honey. Yeah.
Where are you? Is my wife okay? Wait, do I have a wife? I'm so busy in this video game. So let's be really specific. If I remember right, what you told me is that because everybody at our work, because we work at the same place right now, since everybody at our work pretty much all go to lunch from 12 to 1, then the conference rooms are almost never booked. So you literally booked a conference room so that why?
I can write and stay out of people's way, and I'd stay focused on writing.
Yeah, and I remember you were telling me too, and I had mentioned that it was a problem for me too. When I try to work at my desk, people think, well, you're at your desk, so I can ask you a question.
Yeah. If we're the whole company is tied together with Skype, so if you are working at your desk or working on your computer, even if I was to bring up a Word document, the Skype will show that you're there at your desk and available to speak. And typically that's when you start getting problems. People are like, oh, hey, John, I've got this question. You're like, oh, it's my lunch hour. I'm not supposed to talk. So I've actually gone through our email system and booked a conference room for maybe 2 weeks at a time, just in case things change, but about 2 weeks at a time, 3 weeks at a time. And I'll book the conference room during lunchtime when everybody else is at lunch, so I can go in, close the door behind me. I'm not at my desk. There's nothing in this room to really draw my attention, distract me, and sit down, open my laptop, and just get some writing done. It's worked, and like any other writer, there are varying degrees of success. Some days I'm really just laser focused. Woo! I get 3 pages done. Other times I'm like, okay, I should go over this last part. And I'll reread part a couple times and maybe get only a half a page written. But It's still progress in my mind. I can't do it in the mornings, and at night when I come home, we're both tired and I have to cook dinner. And then we sit down and watch a little television.
Yeah, because we have to watch television. Absolutely.
That's a little problem for us. We do enjoy the television a little too much.
Yeah.
But it's given me a great opportunity to write and again, take the energy that I have at work and kind of take some of it and channel it into my writing on my lunch hour. And it's working really good for me now. And I think everybody's going to find something different, whether it's Kitty's way of doing it, sitting in their their car and the parking lot and typing away, or if they find an empty storeroom somewhere, or go out to the park, whatever works for you guys. It's going to take time, and it's going to take a little experimentation to find out what really works for everybody.
Yeah. Which is a great segue into the next part. So we have experimented with several different things. We tried the idea if we go to the gym Monday, Wednesday, Friday, then we would get up at the same time anyway. And let me just tell you, people, it is I believe in God, and God never forsakes us. But 4:30 a.m. deserves the title Godforsaken Time. We get up at 4:30. What is wrong with me that I listened to him and let him push me out of bed? So getting up at 4:30 Tuesday and Thursday and spending the 2 hours that we would normally be at the gym writing instead, that has not worked for me because my brain is awake enough to put on clothes and walk to the gym and try not to trip over weights, but not awake enough to figure out, what the princess is going to do next. And if I remember right, that hasn't really been working for you as much as you thought it would.
No, that was my bright idea was, hey, we'll just, we can just wake up at the same every morning, twice a week, and I'm going to sit there and edit my story that I've been wanting to edit. And no, that hasn't worked yet. So
now, my friend Laura Drake, who's been on the show, I think twice actually. I don't know if she still does it because she's retired now, but there was a time when I'm pretty sure, woke up at 4:30. It might have been 5 every single morning, and she wrote every single morning, and then she would go to her job. So it does work for some people. So that's an idea. If you haven't tried it, you can at least try it because you never know. I mean, it could be a happy surprise.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's just different for everyone. And I've gone through the gamut. I've tried a little bit of everything. Sometimes it has worked to write at night for me, but it's not typical.
Yeah. And I think that's the point is try different things. Like, I think I may not be remembering this correctly. I think I gave you the suggestion of writing at lunch because I was thinking about taking my laptop in and writing at lunch. And I thought that you said, no, then when am I going to relax or play a video game or watch Netflix if I don't do it at lunch? And then it turned out you started writing at lunch even more than me.
Yeah. Like I said, I honestly sort of just poo-pooed it. I didn't want to say it that way, but I was like, I don't think it's going to work for me. But again, I surprised myself and going, oh my gosh, I have all this energy that I've been doing, focusing on animating this character, and I've turned it to, oh my gosh, what's going to happen to Corey next? And I find myself writing away with that with very little difficulty. So it's worked really well. And again,
and you don't feel like it's taken energy away from your work? Like when you're done with your lunch hour, you're still like ready to go back to work?
Well, sometimes I'd like to continue writing, but
right.
I had to pull myself away. But no, there were times when I'm working and I'll keep looking at the clock, looking forward to the time to write, which is a really nice, because typically sometimes it is a little bit of a chore, like everybody, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Everybody's gone through this. Sometimes it's a chore to write. You're like, oh, okay, if I sit down for an hour and put something out, I can put some, words on a page, and it might not be very good, but at least I've done something.
Yeah.
And that's what I thought this would happen, but it surprised me. So I think, it's just going to take a little bit of experimentation.
Yeah. So speaking of experiments, we have tried a couple of other things as well. And in my mind, one of them has worked and one of them hasn't. So the other things that you and I have done, and this is just 2 of them because now I thought of like at least one, I just thought of 2 more. So I want to give people ideas. So one of the things that we have done is having writing sprints where we say we're going to do 3 20-minute sprints over the course of an hour and a half with a 10-minute break or whatever. And this is the start time and this is the stop time. And other times we've just said, okay, over the course of this 2 hours, we will write. So tell me about your experience with being a start and stop time or just during this 2 hours.
Actually, the start and stop time works pretty well because in the 2 hours, you're like, well, I need to get a drink of water. I need to do this. But the sprint times seem to work best. I know that we did a little sprint with our pastor's wife, actually, not more than a couple of weeks ago.
At the library.
At the library. We went to the library and sat down, and she said, okay, let's go write. We're going to write for 20 minutes and go. And we just started writing. And for me, that's a really good format because you're like, okay, I've got water or whatever, or if I need water, I can get it in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
That's 20 minutes to write. And you do your writing and then, or a half hour, whatever the sprint time is. And then she says, time, great. You get to stop, stretch out a little bit, go get that water, go use the bathroom, whatever you need. And that works really best for me because it's short times that you can just focus on your writing, and leading up to the time you start thinking about it. You're like, okay, what am I going to write? What am I going to put down on paper? And then it's sort of like a stopwatch and away you go. So that seems to work best for me, other than we had this 2-hour time. Let's just see how much writing we can get done.
Yeah.
And it really does help, by the way, to have more than just like your wife there. It sort of helps to have somebody else there that's sort of also that you're like having to hold accountable to. Like, well, if they're writing, I've got to write, you know.
Yeah. 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 Like if it was just you and your spouse or you and your best friend, you could be like, oh, can I just ask you this question? And nobody's there that you're interrupting. So there's no reason not to just like break your concentration and talk. But if there's somebody else, you're like, I can't say anything because I'll interrupt them too.
Yeah, and it's just sort of the more people I have with you doing it, the more focused you seem to be. Because we also did a writing sprint in Denver when we went for a writers conference, and I think it was an hour writing time in short sprints, and I had some music on, and I found it no problem to get some writing done while we were there because it was just this room full of people writing at the exact same time, the exact same purpose, with the exact same breaks as you. You got to stretch out a little, talk a little bit, and then back to writing you went.
Yeah. Now, when you can't do that, because there's so many of us who don't have writer friends who live nearby or times that we can all get together at the same time. The other thing that happened in the library is that when I was telling you and Suzanne, okay, ready, go, I was also texting our friend Maria, who was on vacation in Spain with her laptop and her family, and she would start typing. And then I would text her stop when I told you guys stop. And so that is another way that you can do it. I've also done it on Skype and on Zoom. So even if you can't be with somebody in person, there are other ways that you can do these sprints. There's also tons of people who do it on Twitter all together. And, so basically there's the sky is the limit. Whatever you can think of sounds like a fun way for you to do it. It can be done that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially with the iPhone and everything, you can text your friends and everything and arrange times to get together and write if they're across the country or across the world. It's getting a lot easier to find time to write, I hope.
Yeah. So other things that we've done, I thought of two other things. I'll talk about the trains second. So the other thing that we've talked about is, shockingly, here in Sweden, we have so many long weekend vacations, or at least the first half of the year, has so many holidays in it. Apparently, after we get back from summer vacation, we will moan and groan that the next holiday is somewhere around Christmas. But right now, we've had a lot of long weekends. And at least once we successfully called that weekend a writing retreat, and we went to get groceries on Friday night after work. Yep. And then we were like, this is our writing. We're just going to write on Saturday and Sunday. We didn't even go to church.
And way too much chocolate. That's the other slight downside.
Yeah. We should not have bought, quote, fun writing food. No. But so we've done it successfully and unsuccessfully. And this is my opinion, but tell me what you think. I think that the time that we did it successfully, we said on Friday night, okay, Saturday, we're going to start at this time, and then we're going to do these number of sprints, and break for lunch, and then do these number of sprints and break. And then on Easter weekend, I think it was, when we had a really long time, I think that the problem was we were like, we have so much time. And we never said a start and stop time. We just said, we're going to write all day on Saturday. And I don't know that we ever actually started writing because we never put a time to it.
Yeah, we never did. I never cracked open my laptop.
It was horrible.
So again, it's also... sometimes it's best to get away from your apartment, even if it's, like you said, down in your parking spot or down at the local library or something. Getting away from your home, away from the dishes, away from the TV, away from distractions like that. Also, we've discovered it helps a lot.
Yeah.
If you're in a work environment or a place that's not your home, that we find that also helps quite a bit.
And so that is a great segue into our summer train story. Would you like to talk about it, or do you want me to introduce what I'm trying to say first? Please. Okay, so here in Sweden, this will be our second summer. We've been here, at the time that you and I are talking, we've been here something like 1 year and 2 weeks.
Yep.
I think so today. Yeah. And on the day this aired, by the way, I just have to say this because John will be like, So on the day this airs, it'll be like the 32nd anniversary of the day that we met. Or no, not the day we met.
No, not the day we met.
No, the day that you gave me an engagement ring. Ah, I
Yay.
know. John finds it so annoying that I don't forget dates.
She doesn't forget any date. Any
Yeah.
date.
Yeah. But you don't mind being the hero of all my stories, do you?
No, of course not.
Yeah. All right, hero. So let's talk about. So last summer, we found out that there was this 2-month bus ticket, and it only cost a little bit more than just a regular 1 month in city ticket. But for 2 months, you could take any train, any bus, anywhere in Skåne, which is sort of like a county, for lack of a better way to say it. And it's the southern part of Sweden. And we found out that the train will go about an hour and a half east, about an hour and 10 minutes north. And if we could somehow find a way to take it diagonally, we'd probably be on the train for an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes. And so we went to several places that we figured, well, all right, we'll take our laptops. We'll write until the train gets to the end of the part that we can go, the amount of countryside that we can travel for free. And then we'll get off and have lunch in a cafe, and then we'll do it again on the way home. So what do you remember about what worked and what didn't work for that?
Truth be told, I don't remember it being horribly bad. I seem to remember working okay. Finding places to sit can be a little awkward sometimes, and finding a table to set your laptop on. Some of the seats can be a little tight, so you sort of type in like this sort of thing. You're kind of squish is what I seem to remember.
Yeah. And I think a couple times we were just like, oh, let's just walk around this little town we've never been in. And by the time we got on the train, we didn't realize that it would be, in essence, a rush hour time, even though it was before rush hour. And we were like, well, we can't type because we can't find a seat until somebody gets off at some stop eventually.
Yeah, that was a bit of a problem too.
Yeah. But I think that the best times were also the most frustrating ones, when we were really into it and we had to get off. And we were like, but I'm in the middle of typing. And
I've got to save. Come on, save. Hurry. The door's going to be opening soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's another possibility. If you live someplace with the kind of public transportation where you can sit down, open up your laptop, or if you do, what am I trying to say? Audio, speaking, dictating. If you do dictating and you're not afraid to do it in front of 50 or 100 strangers, then you can do that too. But just if there's any way that you can find any sort of public transportation and just get on it and type as fast as you can. Or a lot of people have typed on their commute when they take a bus or a train.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if I remember, either one or both of us did that when we lived in Sydney. And I know at least one time I missed my stop because I was so engrossed in what I was doing.
I never had the opportunity because I was on a train and then on a bus. I never had the opportunity to sit down and write.
You weren't on anything long enough to open it up. Yeah. And our current commute is so ridiculously short, which is awesome. But yeah, definitely no way to write on the commute. But a lot of people do that successfully. So if you, listener, are one of those people who maybe can find a way to write in the car, write in the parking lot, write on the train or on the bus, lots of people do it. Just be careful not to forget your bag.
And forget what stop you're getting off on.
Yeah, that's always helpful to get on the right spot. Can you think of any other tips about things that you think have worked really well for you, or things that you were like, that was crazy, that was a crazy idea and I tried it, but it definitely doesn't work for me?
Well, it's good to make sure that your laptop has a full charge. It sounds silly to say it, but there are times you open it, you're like, yes, and then you're like, oh, look, I have less than 10%. I guess I won't be writing today. It's happened to me once or twice. So it's small and silly, but it's something, again, and sometimes you can find some of the trains that we are on do have outlets that you can plug into. Others do not.
That's true. Yeah.
As well as planes. We have. I wrote part of a novella on a plane trip to, I think it was to Denver, for the writing conference.
Oh, yeah. I was sleeping and you were typing at 2:00 in the morning.
But the bad part is that the outlet didn't work at my seat, so I couldn't charge my laptop. So it was good for a little while, and then I just had to stop because my laptop was running out of juice.
So save often and well.
Save often, save often. Yes, that Control S should be your friend.
Awesome. Any other tips that you want to give to people who are still working through that whole like finishing and sending it out and finding an
Oh
agent and a
man.
publisher and trying to keep going? How do you make time to write when you're in the frustrating part of waiting to hear back from agents and stuff?
Oh, I just keep writing because I'm like, well, this might not that what they have might not be good, but this will be the one I'm going to send out to somebody. It can be, trust me, it can be frustrating when you get this huge line of rejections in your email, one after another, and I've gotten a lot of them. So, but you just got to keep writing. You just got to keep plugging away. There was a time when I wasn't writing and I was frustrated, and then Kitty actually read a email from a friend back in New Zealand when we were there. And she said, my son's reading your story again because he loves it so much. He's reading it for a second time. And I went, darn it, that's motivation enough. And I started writing again. So sometimes it takes a lot of motivation. Sometimes it's something really small. Sometimes you'll look at a notes from somebody and say, oh, they really like this. I need to go back over that. And it'll get you back writing again. So you just have to keep plugging away. You just have to keep writing.
Excellent. Well, I am very impressed and pleased for you that you have been able to keep it up for so long. It sounds like it's been at least 10 years since you first decided to start up again after college.
Gosh, has it been that long? Yeah, I guess it has. It's
crazy.
been a while. It doesn't feel like it though, but yeah, it's you find motivations in the weirdest of places.
Yeah. So until you have something that has been purchased and is about ready to be published, you haven't gone with a website and lots of other things, but there is at least one place that people can find out more about John the writer and the things that you're writing and other interesting, inspiring or funny quotes and memes that you put up there. Where's that?
Yeah, go ahead and visit me at John Bucholtz, author on Facebook. That's spelled just like Kitty, except mine is John, and the last name is Bucholtz, author on Facebook. And I will include everything from some memes to some writing tips to my latest and what's been going on in my writing world. And eventually I will get a Twitter account going, and as well as probably Instagram and some other things. But go ahead and visit me at Facebook, and you can learn more about me there.
Excellent. And actually, that is sort of a tip for other people. John is very interested, let me say it that way, in the political process and the things happening in politics in the U.S. So since he writes middle grade, he's been trying to be very careful not to give out his, shall we just say it, his adult regular addresses on Facebook, Twitter, other places. So if you are also maybe writing for children, but posting things that maybe are not necessarily always appropriate, you might want to make sure that when you're giving out where people can find you, you're only giving out the ones where you are doing, G-rated and encouraging and positive sorts of things, right?
Most definitely. And again, a lot of it's writing tips, writing memes that I found, funny writing things. And I tried to throw that all on my author page just to keep funny and interested and sort of show my sense of humor and stuff. Hopefully in the near future, you'll be getting updates as well as probably a short story or two that for free that you guys can read and check out my writing.
Excellent. John, thanks so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Why, thank you so much for having me, Mrs. Bucholtz.
Thank you, Mr. Bucholtz. We appreciate you.
Thank you very much.